Hello, health heads. Welcome to this dose of Healthcare Uprising.
Hi, I'm your host, Heather Pierce. Over the last 20 years, I've worked all over the healthcare industry, from startups to Fortune 500 companies in marketing and communications. Now, I'm leveraging my experience and connections in the healthcare realm to bring you this Healthcare Uprising podcast.
And I am your producer, Jeremy Carr. I have no experience in healthcare whatsoever outside of this podcast itself. So, your local man on the street, as it were.
And we're here to inform, educate, and create awareness on all the latest innovations in healthcare, as well as the most basic aspects of the healthcare system, like how to use your benefits, what's a PPO versus an HMO, why Medicare matters, things like that.
Yep, that's pretty much what Healthcare Uprising is all about. But why don't you tell them what's on today's agenda specifically, Heather?
So today we're meeting with Juliet Oliver, who is the CEO and founder of Endo45. Before that, she spent 15 years as an engineer in the male-dominated energy industry, where her problem-solving skills naturally transitioned into building Endo45 to address endometriosis. Juliet is an emerging voice in hashtag Femtech, dedicated to making life with endometriosis more manageable and even achieving remission, as she has for the last 8 years.
Yeah, impressive stuff. Impressive stuff. And she comes to us all the way from New Zealand, which is the farthest traveled of any of our guests so far. And one of my favorite accents as well. So without further ado, here is our conversation with Juliet.
Hi, and welcome to the Healthcare Uprising podcast. Today we have Juliet Oliver with Endo45. Welcome to the show, Juliet.
Thank you.
Great. Well, let's just jump right in here. We like to kind of kick things off and get your background and your experience. What drove you to build Endo45, and just, kind of the origins about it. What's the story? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So it's obviously birthed from my journey with severe endometriosis. I'm actually an engineer by trade. I'm not from health or tech. And I guess it was going in deep as an engineer into really what was happening to my body, and really not taking nothing's wrong for an answer, not taking the dismissals for an answer, and not taking just take the pill and go home as an answer, and really wanting to understand, like, what's really going on, what's really going wrong, and can I somehow reshape that narrative for myself. And so I sort of reverse engineered my own endo, cracked my endo code, and have been living pain and symptom free for 8 years now, started a family. So I'm in endometriosis remission, which is pretty unheard of for a lot of people, but is possible to always feel better than you do today, I truly believe. And I started to get really frustrated with how there wasn't a one-stop shop for the gold I had uncovered in the steep journey, the evidence I had uncovered, the practitioners I had spoken to, and how it's all supported to help you with a chronic inflammatory disease like endometriosis. And so I just wanted to get that out into the world. And most importantly, I wanted to make an impact and make sure I was making an impact in people's lives. So we built the Endo45 app. And yeah, I left my energy career and I'm now sort of at the forefront of femtech in this space. And it's exciting. It's really exciting.
So how long ago was Endo45 established?
A year. So last March for Endo Month. Yeah.
So you're really early in on this
Yes. Yeah.
journey. That's exciting. Well, I'm thrilled that you're on the show because, especially, femtech is just women's health is something that I'm really passionate about, and it's definitely a lane we are leaning into here on the Healthcare Uprising. So this is really perfect. As we're recording, it is Women's History Month,
Women's Health Month.
sorry, and it's also Endo Month. You mentioned
It is.
as
Yes.
well. So how timely of us to be kind of touching on all the very current relevant things right now. And staying in that kind of topic there, women's health issues, we're having our moment, right? I feel like it's finally getting the recognition and the attention that we've
Mm.
needed for a long time. Endometriosis being obviously a major female health issue. What do you think's changed? Like what do you think's been changing just in general, and then maybe even for endometriosis itself?
I think sufferers have found their voice, right? And they've found a platform to raise that voice on and get really loud. And when we get loud, we get heard. And it's unfortunate that the system, be it research, medical, corporate, can't move as fast as, say, like a movement or a community can. But it's really good to see that slowly but surely the lights turning on in the city, and everything from new ways of diagnosing endometriosis to new treatments are being researched and funded slowly but surely. And that there's just a really large, I guess, sufferer campaign going on with the world in terms of we should be in control of our own bodies. We can be in control of our own bodies. Now listen up. We need your help to do that. And I think that spans not only endometriosis, but yeah, like you say, women's health. And we are the best measure of our own health and what's going on in our bodies. And we need to be listened to and heard. And then someone's got to help us connect the dots with the science. And that's really what we expect from practitioners, the medical system, anyone, any holistic practitioner or specialist we see. And so, yeah, you see more and more of them cropping up that are in particular endometriosis specialists. And I would always advocate that those are the right people to go to, because those are the people that are truly going to listen, truly going to understand, and be able to help you connect the dots with what's going on.
Can I pull back just for a second here and ask
Yeah.
the most basic of
I
questions
was
of,
waiting for this, Jeremy.
can you tell me,
What
and
is?
our listeners out there who aren't familiar, much like myself, what is endometriosis? And
Mm,
more importantly, what are the effects? What are the main symptoms? And
mm.
why is it so important that, we address this as an issue in health?
Yeah, so endometriosis is really quite prevalent. It's between 1 in 10 and 1 in 7. Some of the new stats are 1 in 7 individuals identified female at birth. So it's continuing to rise. So that's like over 3 million people globally.
That's really
Um,
high number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. And before we get into the what is it, it's probably important to start with the other side of your question, which is what is it? What does it do to someone? It's a really debilitating chronic inflammatory disease, often wrapped in a lot of chronic pain, not only in the pelvic region, but also body wide. It comes with a number of lovely other add on symptoms like endobelly, which is chronic gut dysbiosis or distension of the belly, um, chronic fatigue, like zombie level fatigue, crazy menstrual cycles or really abnormal periods, and generally leaving people very washed up, very wiped out. And to be honest, the string of symptoms are a few pages long that you could possibly have alongside this disease, because it basically hijacks the systems of the body and rages war, like a chronic inflammatory war on your body. So the systems that are there to support you every day, your nervous system, your gut health, your immune system, your hepatic system, they are waging this war. And so they are tired, they are under-resourced, and they are extremely dysfunctional. And so that's why you end up with a strong array of symptoms and kind of it being what we call now a whole body disease, because it literally can affect someone from like their brain to their bum, not just in the fact that these endometriosis lesions, which I'll get into, can grow anywhere from your brain to your bum, but because this kind of war that's being waged zaps your entire body. And it leaves people really washed up and almost unable to participate in life sometimes, and certainly not bring their best. So,
Hmm.
yeah. Um,
That's
and
tough.
then the
That
origin, yeah, it is really
It's like a
tough.
snowball effect. Like the worse it gets, the worse it gets, the worse it gets, and just more
100%.
and
And
more
there's a
symptoms as you go.
Yeah, there's a huge mental health aspect to that as well. So it's like the more it impacts you, the less you do, the louder the clock on the wall gets, the more, the lower the mood, the more anxiety, the more depression, and it's a self-feeding cycle. Um, as well as there now being some interesting science around the endometriosis brain and how constant chronic pain can actually, really impact the pathways in your mind, not only creating pain sensitization so that you feel pain more than a normal person would, but also that it really starts to lower all the things we need to be happy. It really starts to shift us into that depressive state. And so the origins of endometriosis are a little bit unknown, but there's a lot of great new research coming. And it's really, what we know about it is it's really when these cells, we call them endometrial-like cells. So similar to those found in the lining of a uterus, which are supposed to be there. They have a great job in that process of menstruating every month. These cells, similar, are found outside the uterus. Now, they can actually be found in anyone, even men, and they're normally quite harmless. They sort of just sift around, whatever, who cares? But it's when these cells get met with a life of chronic inflammation, potentially some epigenetic factors that get turned on, some toxins potentially from your environment or leaking from your gut, that you create this perfect storm. And basically it interacts with that cell, and that cell transforms and goes rogue, and what we call endo-like. It gets really, really nasty. It can evade your immune system and actually convince your immune system to not clear it out like your immune system would like to, but welcome it to the body party, hook it up with blood supply, oxygen, and enable the cell to grow into what we call endometriosis, or what we know are endometriosis lesions. And these lesions can grow anywhere in your pelvic region and around the body. They're great at invading small spaces. They're great at fusing organs together and doing also tapping into your nerves. And ultimately leaving you with a large amount of chronic pain. And
Are these
obviously something.
internal lesions, just to be clear?
Yes, internal, sorry.
Not anything you would see physically.
No. And another great point about endo is that it's a completely silent disease in the sense that there's nothing you can see that's going on with the human, and often why it's been overlooked and dismissed for so long. On top of that, it's very hard to see with any sort of normal ultrasound or scan, and very hard for someone that's not experienced in it or specialized in it to put the symptoms that you get with it all together and to be able to label it as endo, because individually a lot of those symptoms might get labeled as just IBS or mental health issues or bad periods. So yeah, it's
like separate, just separate conditions, not okay.
When it's all really just one thing.
Very tricky invasive disease, not only for your
and
body
therefore,
to manage. So,
I was gonna say, and therefore different providers too, right? So then you start having that kind of disconnect in your care, I imagine, when you don't have one physician or specialist treating you for all of those things.
Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
There are some stats out there that say people bounce between 5 to 10 practitioners before they get their diagnosis. And it's also why it takes an average of 10 years to get an official diagnosis as well.
10 years?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Because one of the main, or the gold standard for diagnosis as well, is laparoscopic surgery. So not only do you have to kind of find someone who's taking you seriously, do you have to get a suspected endo diagnosis, but then you have to get on a wait list for surgery, get surgery, have it confirmed. So yeah, it's a pretty long journey and a really long time for people to be just operating with so much chronic pain and inflammation in their bodies. And yeah, it takes a lot of resilience, and it's why
and it's common. That's like a lot of people
really,
walking around with this.
In any friend group, in any workroom, in any meeting, like you're gonna know someone, like someone in that space will have endo.
And you never hear it. Like I didn't know what it was before this interview.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's
I had no idea it was going to be that common of a thing.
Yeah.
So is that what Endo 45 is about though? You're like, are you working on being able to get an actual proper diagnosis in an efficient manner? Is that one of your goals?
So we come at it from more of the everything else you can do to take control of your health. It's I guess it's my goal and what led me to now live in endometriosis remission, or live pain and symptom free. And it's what the evidence supports and what practitioners wish you would know when you go on your medical journey, which is like, there's a real time and place for the right surgery at the right time with the right specialist, and hormones and potentially other things that need to come into play. But to actually get to a place of living well with the disease, because there is no medical cure, it is a lifelong disease. It requires you to nourish those systems of the body that I said would be completely dysfunctional. It requires you to nourish those into a place of homeostasis again so they can start fighting for you rather than actually against you and fueling the disease. And so our goal or our product or the Endo 45 app is about taking you on that journey, giving you everything that you need to say what we call become what we call EndoFit. And that's a place where endometriosis is understood. So you've now got the full foundation of what it's all about and what's going on in your body. It's managed. So you've got some really good managing techniques and tools that are going to help you get you out of zombie mode, at least for a little bit, so you can start really like functioning in life and doing some things towards bettering your health. And then also where we say it makes basically you get to a place where it doesn't hold you back. And that's where you're really starting to live well with the disease, and you're starting to reclaim your version of your best self. And that might not be remission for everyone, and I totally respect that. There are like over 65 different types of endometriosis out there. Everyone's at a different level of severity as well in terms of their journey. So, but I do believe that regardless of those two factors, everyone can feel better than you do today using what's in our app. And yeah, going on the journey with it.
So the app itself, if I was a user of that app, am I tracking, am I using it for tracking to maybe find triggers for certain symptoms? Um, do do the people that are using this app does it help for basically like if they go in to see their doctor? And I actually have a question about that too, is like who is like your typical treating physician for endometriosis? Um, so yeah, like maybe share a little bit more about some of the specifics of the app, like how it helps, and and obviously you've used your own journey, your own like inputs, right, to create this app to help keep you in remission too, right? Like I imagine there's probably a lot of kind of learned experience there.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So basically, the app, yes, it is a place to track your endometriosis symptoms, keep a note of anything that is triggering you, and to be able to really see the woods from the trees on, one day from the next, 1 month to the next, which can be really hard when you're in that deep place with endo. On top of that, it's like I say, it's everything known to help, that's proven to help, evidence backed and practitioner supported. And we kind of serve that up to you as well. So when you come into the app, you tell us what your goals are, and we give you a recommended roadmap and a path or a place to start. And you can just go in and utilize what we call the quick hits, which help you in the here and now, manage your pain and symptoms, learn, which is like I said, get really educated on what's actually happening in your body, because it's not stuff that's covered in the 15 minutes you have with your specialist or your doctor. And then we have the gold in it, which is the ability to build, track, and master these endo fighting healthy habits, which is where the rubber really hits the road and we start to shift the dial on how people truly feel. And we've tried to make those like the most simplest things everyone could do, but also probably the things that people really don't realize are contributing to intensifying symptoms or proliferating the disease that they do every day. So yeah, it's just bringing all that together at someone's fingertips so they can go on that journey. And yes, like you said, it is all my gold, but we also have other successful Endo 45, what I call Endo Fit pros, who have become Endo Fit and reached their best self, because in the app you get an Endo Fit score, and that
Oh.
score will show you over time just how well you're doing. And you can drill down in that score into your different pillars of health and see which ones are doing better than others. But ultimately, that's your buddy and your guide to keep you motivated, to keep you going, and to show you that actually, even though you're still feeling terrible, you are slowly getting better and things are starting to tick up.
Hmm. That's good. Gives you a little bit of hope.
Yeah, it makes it
Yeah,
kind of a game keeping score like that and stuff. That always gives people a little more motivation to stay involved.
yeah.
That's
Good,
great.
good
Hope is really
psychology.
Yeah,
And I
which
asked
was
about the
really
physician piece of this too. Um, I feel like I should know the answer to this. It's like, oh, of course it's a gynecologist, but is it like who would be? Is it primary care physicians? Because it's so misunderstood. Could it be an internist? I mean, I guess it could be a multitude of physicians, but I'd love to hear
mm.
about that a little bit more.
So more often than not, people will end up at a gynecologist because they're presenting with pelvic pain, because they're potentially presenting with quite abnormal, obscure periods, menstrual cycles, and some hormone related issues. And more often than not, that's an okay step to take. You'll get a normal, probably pelvic ultrasound, which is going to check for anything, any major abnormalities, any maybe a major cyst on your ovary. You might be able to see a big endometrioma, which is a type of endometriosis cyst on the ovary. But those simple scans and checks by a non-specialized gynecologist aren't going to get you an endometriosis diagnosis. So a lot of people at that point, unfortunately, the gynecologists will use the tools that they have at hand to help the person manage their symptoms. So they're going to say something like, try hormones, try birth control, try the pill, or try even as far as induced menopause to lessen the symptoms and kind of just send you on your way. The unfortunate nature about that is that you don't get the diagnosis. You end up experimenting with hormones, which might not be the right place for you to start, or they may not work for you. And you're still not any clearer around what you have and then how severe what you have is. Like if you have endometriosis, where it is in your body, what's it's impacting and affecting. So the drive really needs to be for those, I guess, what I would call frontline gynecologists to recognize and notice when someone needs to go for further, more in-depth investigation. There are other ultrascans that, in the hands of and in the eyes of specialists, can detect certain forms of endometriosis. And then there's obviously, like, if it's the right time for you and the right approach, getting surgery and getting the diagnosis through that means, but also then having what they can removed of the disease, which gives you a bit of a sort of a new starting point with where the lesions are in your body.
Okay.
Hmm.
As you were talking too, I was thinking, well, we know that it's a very hard condition to diagnose. 10 years. It's bonkers to me. What a terrible, like that's horrible. I can't even
Mm.
imagine. I I'm wondering, this is kind of like curious, would the Endo 45 app be good for somebody who hasn't been diagnosed, but has a pretty good feeling they probably have endometriosis? I have to imagine once you start kind of tracking and kind of listening to what the app is serving up to you, that then you can take that, right? And go into your doctor and say, see, look, it's right here. Have you heard of people using it for that purpose and then actually helping
Mm.
them to get a diagnosis sooner?
Yes, 100%. It's the right thing to do. If you even
Mhm.
remotely suspect, because you're having interesting pelvic pain or weird periods, it's the right app for you. And that means you're also going to be on the front foot because you know what we say, prevention is the best cure, but also early intervention with endometriosis is so essential because some people's disease progress to levels which are, bonkers, like beyond kind of repair to some degree, and we just don't want to get there. We need to nip this in the butt really early. So the sooner you track, the sooner you can, like you say, advocate for yourself. And when you track and when it's all written down like that, no one can undermine you. No one can
Mm.
undermine the fact that you pressed severe on the pain button for like 10 out of the 30 days of the month, right? So it's really important to track and start learning and educating yourself, which is what the app can do. And maybe realizing that a few of the things you do every month might be leading to why you're experiencing an abnormal amount of pain over others, and could help you self manage a bit of that pain while you go on this medical journey and be ready for surgery, which we say, given that this is a chronic inflammatory disease, surgery is not a cure, it will grow back. So you want to make that surgery last as long as possible. You hear about these people having to go in for a new surgery like every 2 to 3 years. I'm still running on my first surgery 8 years later because it's all about trying to slow and prevent the regrowth. And so having what we do, like what we propose in the app, all in place before you have your surgery is kind of the best method. Um, Subsequently, a lot of people will time their surgery with their fertility journey. So we know that, or we see anecdotally that if you have the surgery, if you've been having infertility issues, you have endometriosis excision surgery, a lot of people tend to have successful pregnancies immediately following.
Like right after
What
the surgery?
Yeah, like right after, like within a few months sometimes
Oh,
is
wow.
my community anyway, and their
Mhm.
experience. It's not a given, but it's certainly for some a big game changer. And what we know about all these things that we talk about to fight endo is that the flip side of that is that it's supercharging your fertility. So, a
Hmm.
big preventer of um, or a big enabler of infertility is how much inflammation there is in and around your pelvic region. If there's no physical obstruction, then it can be due to inflammation. And so when we're fighting a chronic inflammatory disease and lowering inflammation in the body, we're obviously like enabling fertility. And so for a lot of people, that becomes a really important and very deeply purposeful journey, right? They finally have their why. Like if they couldn't change for themselves, then they'll change for this because they really want to start a family. And so I
Hmm.
think it's the perfect time to be in the app, to be doing all of these things that are within your control.
So with endometriosis, Jeremy, I knew I was going to say that word. You should have heard me before.
When I asked her what we were talking about today before the interview, it took her about 8 tries to say it
Endometrio. Oh.
right.
Yeah, you can just say endo.
Endometriosis.
I know. It's what I'm like. I'm just going to call it endo. So I've been really proud of myself. I haven't screwed it up yet, but it was inevitable. um, so somebody with endometriosis, look, I got it
There you
right.
go.
Thank you. um, is it typical to have infertility issues? Is it also typical to have is it considered like a high risk pregnancy when you are diagnosed with endo and actually go through, or like anything around, I guess maybe the fertility kind of, I don't know, pathway for somebody like from trying to get pregnant all the way to delivery and even like post delivery, I wonder too.
Mm. Yes, so actually, infertility is only reported to happen to between about 40 to 50% of those who suffer with endo. So it's not a given. And there is a lot of hope that you will still have, a very successful pregnancy or pregnancies if you have endometriosis. I probably can't speak on the high risk thing. That's obviously I'm not a practitioner or a fertility specialist. It certainly wasn't an issue for me. It wasn't really um, mentioned to me, but I would suspect that if endometriosis has done a lot of contorting and changing your uterus, ovaries, fallopian tubes, all of that, then there is going to be, yes, some concern and some potential additional monitoring of that pregnancy. One interesting thing about pregnancy and endo is that for a long, long time, people would always be told, oh, just get pregnant because that stops the disease. Just have a baby, which is like quite interesting when you're speaking to an 18 or a 20-year-old. And just anyone in general around trying to, I guess, force them into strongly considering to have an early pregnancy to better
When they're
their
not
position.
ready just to get rid of
Yeah,
something.
That
exactly.
seems
And
like an extreme measure. It's like
Yeah.
burning
it
down your
is.
house to get rid of some
Yeah.
cockroaches.
Yeah, and that's that's a journey in itself with being told
Mhm.
those things by practitioners, by doctors, who you want to trust and you want to follow their guidance. But what we do know is that for some, like for some, potentially pregnancy or post a few pregnancies, um, they will have a lessening of symptoms, but it is categorically not been confirmed, I think, that pregnancy in any way, shape, or form stops or cures the disease. So a lot of people will have recurrence after their pregnancy, and sometimes their symptoms charge back within a few months. I know personally, I didn't have my menstrual cycle while I was breastfeeding for the first year, but some people, regardless of that, will just have these horrific cycles even a few months after giving birth. So it can be, it can be a moment of reprieve in time being pregnant, but certainly not a cure.
That's interesting that being pregnant would like make it go away for a while. That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
it's
think,
pretty wild.
yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
I mean, it
pregnancy
affects the way
changes
those
a lot of
cells are grown, I guess, right? Because uteral cells. Am I saying that
Uterine.
right? Uterine cells.
endometrial cells. Yeah.
So I mean,
Endometriosis. See, we learn things on the fly here.
but I mean, getting pregnant would change the way those cells are behaving, I guess, in
Ooh,
a way, right? Because that's
Dr.
Yeah,
kind of what
so
they're
Carr,
there
I'm
for.
impressed.
Well, I mean, it's just I'm a logician in my way.
yeah.
I can solve
But
puzzles,
they
but
do
I
have
mean,
a hormone
oh,
engine,
so,
these cells. Yeah, they are driven by estrogen in the absence of progesterone, but it is localized to that cell. It's not necessarily driven by your own estrogen. But however, pregnancy can do a lot of things, including suppress your immune system and your immune responses in the body. So, yeah, and yeah, just a lot of lovely hormones and chemicals are induced during pregnancy. And so there's a lot of things in terms of pain management, reduced inflammation, you know, all sorts in terms of the symptoms that just kind of go quiet and remain quiet as a result. And I think that hormonal piece is probably why hormone birth control does work for some people, because instead of you going through these hormone fluctuations, which then ticks off, like peeves off these lesions and gets them to play up, you can flatten that curve. And so it may not completely eliminate your pain, but it may mean you don't have big pain flares or pain spikes as a result of the hormone fluctuations in your body. And that's, guess what pregnancy is doing. Like you said, you just go into this kind of homeostasis place with your hormones.
Hmm,
interesting.
yeah. And on the flip side of that, pregnancy, you had mentioned induced menopause being a solution, maybe an answer to eliminating, or because I know you said you can't really get rid of it, but can, so having a hysterectomy, I'm assuming, is what that means,
Oh,
or no?
so two things. So you
Okay.
can induce menopause medically. So you
Oh,
can
okay.
basically take hormones or pills, medication. I won't call them hormones because they're not natural, but medication to induce menopause, to shut down the parts of your brain that trigger, your hormonal cycle. It's the same as it's not the same. It's in the same way we alter the brain state when we take just the pill or birth control. It's
Okay.
controlling our menstrual cycle. Or you can have a hysterectomy, and some people do get to the place where it's just so unbearable, and their symptoms and their periods are so unbearable that they choose to have a hysterectomy. Neither induced or physical hysterectomy is actually a full cure for the disease. As
Okay.
horrific as that is, it's still not a guarantee that you
Mm,
get a full cure or you will live, endo free for the rest of your life. Because, like I said, like hormones is just one part of it, and the lesions are not just on your uterus and your ovaries; they can be anywhere, and they can still grow um, without those hormonal swings happening, because they
mm,
are self-sufficient in their hormone generation. Um, so yeah, pretty extreme methods. However, like I said, some people's cases of the disease are so severe, and they're now battling such chronic, you know, menstrual conditions and pain that it does get to that place where it's like, please just cut it out. Please just stop it. Please remove it. Like just remove it. Like, I'm done. And
mhm.
it's just so tough, especially when you're potentially young, potentially pre your fertility journey. Yeah, but they do use short periods of induced menopause to help control certain things around some people's medical journeys. And I know that that can be effective for some people, but it comes with some pretty horrific side effects because it's like being thrown into menopause.
Oh
Um,
boy.
What?
Yeah.
yeah, at, you know, yeah.
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
some
that's
extreme
horrible enough
fixes.
when you're designed to go
Yeah.
through it, let alone when you're not.
Right.
So, yeah, as you can see, we have a lot of blunt tools for what is a very complex disease. And
Hmm.
really, we're getting by and we're managing, but that's why the community is so loud because
Hmm.
9 times out of 10, someone's journey is pretty damn horrific. From
Hmm.
everything from the waiting and the gaslighting to the symptom management and blunt treatment options, and then having to undergo surgery as well. So yeah, it's a lot.
So aside, I mean, so you've got Endo 45, you've got this app that is allowing people who either have been diagnosed with endo or maybe haven't yet, or having all the telltale symptoms, it helps them advocate for themselves. It helps create more of a, concrete information. Like, yeah, these symptoms are real. It's actually happening to me to further these, maybe the increase or maybe shortening the time frames of somebody getting diagnosed and then treated properly for endo, which is amazing, right? Like, sounds to me like this is a huge part of the problem, right? Because you've got tools once somebody is diagnosed, whether through surgery, some of these very extreme, you know, uh, you know, induced menopause, things of that nature. But beyond that, like, what else is happening for endo in the universe right now to help give it a bigger platform, give it a bigger voice, and help kind of further the treatment and the diagnosis of the condition?
Mm. So there is a lot of lobbying happening, like a lot
Oh,
worldwide.
good.
Yeah, because it almost needs its own roadmap, and some countries like Australia have set that out to have an endometriosis roadmap that is a government initiative, which largely involves, more money into research, things like that, more money into the not-for-profits and the places and support avenues for people, but also the creation of what they call endometriosis clinics. Like I mentioned, it requires an integrative approach. Like it requires everything we tout in the app plus your medical journey to really overcome the disease. And they're starting to clue on that people who have the best results have gone down a multimodal or integrative path and like used everything that's within their control to navigate the disease. So they say, well, why not put clinics like that together? Let's have pain specialists, let's have naturopaths, let's have dietitians, let's have our gynecologists and specialists there as well. Let's have psychologists because the mental health aspect is huge as well. So creating and setting up those hubs, I guess, where people with endometriosis can go is a big piece that countries and governments can do. However, again, this is kind of like only serving a percentage of the population, especially if they're potentially private clinics, right? Or in certain locations. And so, really, femtech, which I think everyone is starting to clue on to, needs to be a big piece in
Mm.
solving this puzzle and being right there, right up alongside the sufferer in their journey day in, day out, and be immediately accessible, be affordable, be things that put them back in control, like everything from how can they test and understand certain things to have a consult with a practitioner to use our app and get all the gold and start and build new healthy habits that are going to help them fight endo. That all really, when we're talking about how many people globally are impacted, that's kind of where things start to shift the dial. And we're seeing some really awesome new ways to diagnose that won't mean a lot of people won't need surgery. And once those hit the market, that's amazing and it's great and it's going to enable a lot of people to have a lot of answers a lot sooner. But it also means we'll potentially have a lot more people who know they have endometriosis showing up to the doors of medical systems who are completely under resourced. We hear about it all the time in the UK. The wait times to just see a gynecologist have just shot up to 2 years.
Two,
And
two
you've seen
years?
yeah, 2 years to even get seen for like an initial, yeah, yeah,
Oh my
I thought
God.
America was bad.
Yeah,
Good Lord.
that's
yeah.
deeply concerning.
2 years. Like you've already had
In
a
New
couple kids
Zealand,
by then.
yeah,
Technically, you could.
in New Zealand, you go in a lottery to get your surgery, like a literal lottery. So,
Uh-huh.
like, if you're in the private public system, sorry, so it's like you're
Mhm.
just waiting for your number to get drawn.
Mm,
Wow.
So, yeah, it can be a few years.
yikes.
So yeah, it's like we really need all of us. We need everyone everywhere, everyone from the people just, continuing to tell the story, continuing to make it real for everyone globally that this condition does exist. It is real and this is how it impacts us, right through to working in schools and corporates, which is some of what I do as well, going into businesses and helping educate and understand and train and leave them with tools like Endo 45, and then right through to giving this endometriosis community things at their fingertips that they can take control of the disease
Yeah.
with, um, and
Bring
support the
bring the
people
people, right?
doing, yeah,
Gotta have
and
that volume
support the
to.
people doing the research. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's a lot of interesting research which is happening at the intersection of why the immune system welcomes those rogue cells rather than clears them out, and what is the dysfunction there that's happening. And I think whoever cracks that is probably onto a real root cause treatment that may definitely shape how we manage endometriosis in the future. So yeah, that's an interesting one to watch
Have
too.
you heard from providers, doctors, physicians who have patients using your app that have said thank you, basically? Like, you just made my job easier, or like your app is
Yeah,
helping to save lives. I mean, quite honestly, based on some of these severe symptoms.
definitely save quality of life, right? Like
Yeah.
it can be transformative, when you give someone back control. Yes, so the practitioners on our medical advisory board are there because they believe just that. They're like, this is everything I need my
Mm.
patients to know, that I don't have time to tell them. I don't have the necessarily all of the knowledge or the capability to tell them. And even if I did, I certainly couldn't tell them in a 30-minute meeting where we need to be focusing on their surgery and some of this more important stuff. So, but damn, do I wish they knew all this, right? And I guess that's why they're there. That's why they support us. And we're very much looking for, more and more practitioners to join the bandwagon and to recognize that tools like this can be really good supplementary or support things that they give to their patients when they see people suffering with endo. Yeah.
Can I ask a tangent question? You said at the beginning you aren't even really originally from the healthcare space. You were an engineer. What kind
Yeah.
of engineer were you, and how hard was it to trans? Obviously, you've been in the healthcare space a while because you're talking like an expert on some of this stuff. How hard was it to make that transition? And do you find that your skills as an engineer help in building a product like Endo 45?
Yes. So I was an energy engineer actually. So a process engineer by degree, and then worked in like the energy industry for 10, 15 years. And 100%, I'm the kind of engineer that has a knack for being able to see the bigger picture, see a process from like a bird's eye view, and then be able to break it down into really simple pieces and almost find where it's inefficient and then reverse the inefficiency. I was called the efficiency lady. I built like a I built like a brand new innovation system and team here in New Zealand, and actually won awards for that, which was kind of
Wow.
sidelined to all of this. But it was that knack that said, well, the human body is just another system.
Hmm.
And when it comes to endometriosis, they say, I've got 99 problems and endometriosis is just one, because there's all these other systems in the body that are out to lunch and dysfunctional, and they actually need the priority treatment from you. And it's you that's in control of those systems because they're your bodily systems, not the medical people. So I was like, right, well, okay, I guess this is my next big reverse engineering challenge. And how do I crack this code? And where do I find the inefficiencies? And where do I get them back to optimal health? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
those things translated, and it was it hard. I think what was really hard was being at the height of my career when being slammed with a stage 4 endometriosis bus in a male dominated environment where the company hadn't even heard of the word endometriosis, almost losing my relationship, almost walking away from that career, and then having this gold moment where I'm in tears in my boss's office and I'm explaining to him what's going on with me and how I just can't cope anymore. This is before I even know what I have because I've been dismissed by a number of practitioners at this point. And he does something completely unexpected and leans in and says, how do I help and support you? And in that moment, it changed the trajectory of my life because he enabled me to carve out a career that really worked for me. Because for a lot of us, it requires a flexible workspace and an understanding workspace to
Mm.
thrive because we cannot show up with 150% every day of the month when we are battling endometriosis. It's just not going to happen. So, how do you work in a high performing team environment, and how do you sort of like be able to bring your best self on any given day and for the company to still be able to get value out of that? So that's a big piece of my journey, and I've sort of lost the original question, sorry, but I
Oh
feel
no, that was
like
great. That was
We do
exactly
that
what
a
I was
lot
looking
around
for.
here.
You got it. You
yeah.
answered the whole thing.
Yeah, no, that's it.
So
Yeah,
Jeez.
it makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that
really
maybe.
important.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's just so important to have those support people on your journey. Like your
Oh
power
yeah.
is in your people, especially when the medical system is not showing up for you.
Mm,
You need good backing and support because some days are really tough to show up for life. Yeah.
I bet. Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
And you had a great boss, obviously, who was thoughtful. And I've been thinking about while you've been talking about your distribution channels for Endo 45. Are you going directly to patients? Are you going through providers so that those or physicians or practitioners, I think is the term. That's our different global terminologies, right?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, and I work in the healthcare world, and so it's like PCP, primary care, physician. What word are we going to use? Doctors. But do you go straight to them and to like gynecologists or other ones and say, hey, you should, you know, tell your patients or whatever? I'd love to hear kind of how you get it out there in the world so people know how to
Mm.
get it, how to use it.
So right now, our main aim is to get it directly into the hands of people who need it. So
Mhm.
anyone can just download it from the App Store, either App Store, Google or Apple, right now today. And in New Zealand, yes, we are aligning with practitioners. We are getting it in their waiting rooms. We want to be in every GP office, so that it's a tool and a resource that is handed on through that means too. And globally, we would like to see that too. We just feel like we need to probably approach one country at a time when it comes to the medical system. And yeah, but teaming up with providers, particularly in America, would be an amazing opportunity, and I think key and necessary. I have a lot of our users that would say, if my doctor told me to do this, I would probably put in an extra, 50 or 70% effort because it's one thing for Juliet Oliver to sit there and be like, come on, you can do it. And for the app to motivate you. But it's another for your doctor to be like, oh, and I need you to do this
Yeah.
because,
You always take it more seriously what a doctor's telling
yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah. And, if it's going to better your medical journey as well, why not? Why wouldn't you? And your outcomes. So, yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I thought about too, and this might be a little ways down the road, but with a lot of the folks that we interview on the show, um, they start kind of direct to consumer and then also bring their products to employers, like as like employer provided benefits for their, especially if you have, a really high percentage of, women in your workforce, like in the healthcare industry, which is very common. So,
Yeah.
is that kind
Yeah.
of a long-term goal?
Yeah, it's even a short-term action. I think,
Oh,
in New Zealand we're doing kind of all three. We're doing consumer, practitioner, or provider. We're doing insurance companies, and we're doing corporates. So we're
Oh,
kind of
through
we're
insurance
everywhere.
companies. That was the other
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
I forgot. Yep,
yeah.
I forgot that one. Okay, that makes sense.
So now it's just about like how do we take any of those global? Obviously, B2C, it's out there and globally in the world, so anyone can grab it now. But yeah, it's just a time thing, like you said, to move from one country to the next in terms of those other pathways to market.
I mean, the app's available everywhere already, though, right? Like people can download it. Like
Yeah.
maybe their practitioner or provider doesn't have it yet, but they can have it. So
Oh
that's a
yeah.
start. That's a
Yeah.
start.
100%.
That's
And the
great.
interesting thing about the endometriosis community, and something I sort of posted about the other day, is that there was a survey done, and 85% of people responded said that they learnt everything that was useful on their endo journey, and the most practical information and useful information from social media, not from their practitioners and doctors. And if
Wow.
people are then taking what they see on social media and implementing it in their lives and finding change, or
Hmm.
seeing change and feeling change, then we're in a place right now in this particular community with this particular disease where self-driven advocacy, change, implementation, and learning is actually what we're doing. It's just where we're at. It's the gear
Yep.
we're in. And so I just go, hey, everyone, like everyone that was like me, please, like, have this, have my gold, learn it, know it, get it in your lives, and don't wait for answers from anywhere else, because they're going to be potentially a long time coming.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot more people, with social media, like influencers that are talking about their specific medical health journeys about, could be endo, could be, there's a number of other things. I think having
Mm.
those voices is really important in helping, you know, even companies like yours, right? Like just in the general kind of scheme of things, right? Like endometriosis. I'm gonna
You
do it
almost
again.
made it.
Endo. Getting endo, just a bigger platform, and sharing the stories, right? Like this is what's happening. These are real people with real conditions, and bringing it to the masses. So
Mm, mm,
I
so
love it.
important.
Yeah.
Are there any big milestones, achievements that you are coming up on? Now, you said you had launched a year ago. I'm assuming you launched the actual app a year ago. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. Any big kind of big milestones coming up, or anything like that you want to
Yeah.
talk about?
Yeah. So actually, we're about to initiate, or have soft launched, our impact campaign or program, where we're going to start offering the app for virtually free, or a extended free period, and then a really, really minor ongoing subscription cost in countries where, you know, it's really underserved. Like, these women are just really underserved and really, really, really unlikely to be able to access good care, or sometimes even, good, not even good endo care, but just good menstrual or women's health or hormonal care. And so um, we've started with India. There are 43 million people who suffer in India alone. And so we've put the app out there for free, and we hope that, we can really have an impact. We can actually start to give back in some countries, where we know the barriers to accessing this sort of stuff is just so high.
Hmm, that's amazing.
Yeah, you don't hear people
Yeah,
giving stuff
we're
away for
really
free much
excited
these
about that.
days.
Yeah.
No.
And
So,
we in order
yeah.
to make this impact program work, we need someone somewhere else in the world, going, right, I'm going to get a subscription to this app, because not only is it going to help me, but I'm going to help someone else who can't afford
Yeah,
it. So yeah, it's really important.
Yeah.
it's a great approach. I love that.
Yeah. Access is everything. I mean, can't work for free, but if you can give part of it away, and then, really it helps build awareness. ultimately, right? So the more people know about it, the better. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, this has been a very, I say, oh my, this conversation was enlightening. I mean, they are. We learned so much
Every time.
by meeting people like you and who are building these apps and this technology and the innovation that comes, in healthcare. I feel like every single episode, we not only do we learn something, but we do bring that awareness out to the universe. And so this is definitely a huge part of the show. And so endometriosis
There you go.
did it. That is definitely I think it's definitely an area that needs more love. So we're happy to give you the platform here to talk about it and help get more word out there on the street about it and help more people get better,
Thank,
try
thank
to
you so
live a
much.
better life, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And especially after hearing the stats, like we all know somebody who's suffering from this.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even realize that, but 1 in 7 women, everybody knows someone who's suffering from this.
Yep.
So yeah, we should all get behind this.
Yeah.
Endo 45, man. Let's get behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Juliet, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a really, really great conversation. But before we say goodbye, will you share with us and our listeners the best place to find you online? We know we can download the app, but any kind of information like that we can leave with our listeners today.
Yeah, sure. So we're at Indo_45 on Instagram, this Indo45 on LinkedIn and Facebook. So yeah, follow along. And equally, you can follow me at Juliet on LinkedIn, Juliet Oliver. But yeah, most importantly, just the most direct place to find out more about us is Indo45.com or just direct download Indo45 from your app store.
Wonderful. And tell your friends, like Jeremy just said, everyone knows somebody who has it. So
Yeah.
if you know anybody, make sure you let them know about Endo 45 and help them help what is the word you say? Help me help you, right?
There you go. Help
Yeah.
us help you.
Help us help. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
help us help you.
Awesome. Well, Juliet, thanks again. This has been a great chat today, and we've all learned something new today. So
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was
yeah,
great.
Glad.
awesome.
Glad. Thank you so much.
And there you go, our conversation with Juliet from Endo 45. Very enlightening conversation. I didn't even know what endometriosis was before. Now I know that I know people who have it,
hmm
even
And
though I didn't realize
and
it.
now you can say it.
Endometriosis. I can you?
Endo, well, that is to be seen. Endometriosis.
There you go. There you go. It's all about practice, man. But what are our main takeaways from that interview, Heather?
Honestly, I think one of the biggest things, and I think you were also equally as floored, is how common it is.
Yeah.
I honestly, I've known what it is for years. I'm a woman. We talk about these things. I've known people who have it, but truly never considered um, that there's just a high number of people who have it, and also the severity of the symptoms, and just thinking about how many people are experiencing symptoms from endometriosis and you don't know or they're hiding it. Like to me, that's just crazy. And it kind of hurts my heart a little bit because that's a lot of people living in a lot of pain and discomfort.
Yeah, and there's no real diagnosis for it. Everybody tries to call it something else by individual symptoms get diagnosed as different things as opposed to, them realizing it's really just one thing that's causing all these problems. 10 years
Yes, that was the other thing I
to get
wanted
a
to say.
diagnosis. 10
That's
years
a long time
to
to
get a
live.
diagnosis.
Yeah.
Like that is a huge part of someone's life.
Yeah.
And to spend it in anguish like that without having any resolution or answers and getting passed from doctor to doctor, no one
hmm
actually solving your problem. Man,
hmm
like this app is a big deal for these people. It really is, I think.
I think it's a reminder too that the uh, how women's health has just been so underserved, under studied. This comes up a lot in our show because we cover so much stuff around women's health. and like the different conditions and cancer research, blah blah blah, all the things that are specific to women, where women weren't even included in studies until like the mid 90s. Like, what the heck? But that's changing. Endo 45 is
in
part of that.
in a big way, apparently, according to this podcast.
A really big, yeah, really big way. And also too, I think it's really cool that you've got, folks like Juliet and others creating these apps that specifically target these medical conditions, like really kind of like niching out in the healthcare space and using technology and AI and all those things. We always say like there's an app for everything, right? Why
Yeah,
not in healthcare? So there's an
yeah,
app for everyone. If you have endometriosis, there's an app for you
yeah.
to help you manage those conditions. So it's pretty cool to see that kind of evolution in healthcare,
Yeah.
really.
And her crossover from engineering into the healthcare space, and as an engineer coming up with solutions to healthcare issues, is such a great crossover. And really, it's unfortunate for her she had to go through it, but Juliet's struggle with endometriosis is going to lead to who knows how many multitudes of other people finding a solution to their endometriosis now.
Yep.
So like her curse is such a blessing to everybody else with this disease, you know
Hmm.
what I mean? And like and it's tough for her, but she's going to help so many people with that. And I think the fact that she was an engineer and not in the healthcare space,
Yeah.
like it is a big part of the reason why Endo 45 exists.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
So it's a cool origin story of the app, as it were.
We get a lot of those, I think, with a lot of the founders that we meet. And also the other thing that seems to be a consistent theme is the quality of time that is being created for patients with their providers and the efficiency that is being created for those 15 minutes, that you
Yeah.
get every time you see your PCP or specialist or whatever. They've got limited time. And so these apps like Endo 45, the technology is just it's creating efficiency
Yeah.
in the healthcare ecosystem, and it's literally changing lives.
Yeah, you got the niche ones like this. You got the general ones like the guava that we did the two-parter on, and
Hmm.
just so many. And the Cybele Health that is more for the provider side that
Yeah.
that is giving them access to more people's stories and that they wouldn't have otherwise. And yeah, it just makes doctor appointments so much more efficient. You walk in, you go, here's my history, here's what's wrong.
Hmm.
I've got the tests done. What do we do? And then
Exactly.
you have the whole 15 whole minutes that you get with your doctor. You can get straight to the point. He already knows what the issue is, and you can deal with it directly instead of spending that 15 minutes going, wait, when was my last appointment? Who did I talk to last? When was my last symptom?
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, and it's again unfortunate that the system doesn't do that for us, but the
Yeah.
fact that there are people out there giving us the power to do it for ourselves is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. We are taking control of our healthcare in so many different ways, and Endo 45 is certainly stepping up to the plate there. So
Yeah, so hopefully this helps some of the listeners out there, and if you know anyone suffering from this, please send them to this podcast and have them listen to this episode. And I'm not just saying that because we want you to hit the happy little fun buttons with the likes and subscribes and shares and whatnot. Share it because they need it.
hmm
We're also on all the audio platforms. We are on YouTube. We have a Patreon where you can help support the Uprising for as little as $1 a month goes up from there. So any way you want to access us, we are around pretty much everywhere. Where else are we, Heather?
we have a website that's currently in development, healthcareuprising.com.
It still counts.
It counts. Um, and we're also all over social media. You can find us on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Facebook, and Instagram. Just search Healthcare Uprising Podcast and you'll find us. We post a lot out there so you can stay up to date on when we're dropping new episodes. Also, if you have a story to tell, if you're a founder, if you work in the healthcare industry and you're doing something innovative and cool and forward thinking, we'd love to talk to you. So please give us a shout out on email, healthcareuprising@gmail.com. And we'd love to schedule some time to meet with you and bring you on the show. Also, if you're just a regular old human walking around this earth and you've got a great healthcare story for good or for bad, or both, give us a call. we'd love to talk to you too. So email us at healthcareuprising@gmail.com for that. And we'd love to bring you on as part of our human series. And with that,
to be a bonus episode.
Yes, a bonus. Yes, we like to drop our bonus episodes. Those human stories are really important to what we're doing here on the old pod. So I think that's it. That's your dose of healthcare today. And with that, keep looking for the good in the world, because sometimes it's where you least expect it.
This has been a Shut Up production.